As many of you are aware, this particular conference is actually divided into 2 days. This is day 2 of the conference itself. And what we wanted to be able to do is to at least be able to give you a brief in terms of what took place on day 1 of the conference, to be able to actually understand where R2E2's thinking is in terms of the approach as far as EPR and the engagement around that goes. So in the next while, I'll give you a quick commentary in terms of where we stand as far as what transpired in day 1. One of the things that I wanted to highlight that came from Professor Armstrong's keynote is he ended with the specific point around the need for collaboration. And I think this is one of the key things that actually came out as a clear theme from day 1. There is a need for collaboration across the PROs, as well as the larger EPR ecosystem upstream and downstream in the value chain. This is really a critical point. No single PRO can achieve the fundamental objectives designed in the EPR regulation and system requirements on their own. Therefore, there is a need for collaboration, particularly across topics such as infrastructure development. And I think this is really a critical point. The way that the regulation is actually set up, it is set up in terms of ensuring environmental impact across the entire product lifecycle. So this means everything from when the product is actually placed on market, the collection, the recycling, and what happens after this point. And so for this, it's essential that we need to actually look at this from a holistic perspective. So some of the key topics covered, and that I'll unpack for you very briefly, include things like the need for a national collection model, the establishment of a recyclers forum, the need for sector-specific training, developing an EPR data management system, particularly for electronic goods, and the development of viable partnerships. Some of the points raised under the national collection model include each organization that was present in the collection space had a chance to speak about their experiences and lessons learned. And for this, I'd like to share which specific organizations were in attendance. These included the African African Reclaimers Organization, my sincere apologies, ARROW, R2E2, ERA, DESCO, Bafana Recyclers. 2 municipalities were in attendance. The Kwadakuza municipality in KwaZulu-Natal and the city of Johannesburg. Of these in attendance, some topics actually came up, and I wanted to highlight some of the practicalities that came from the engagement, because this is really the critical point, that when we look at collaboration, it is with the intention that this become as practical as possible. So as an example, the waste reclaimers wanted to gain some clarity from the municipalities on bylaws that give access to dump sites and the right to collect waste. So they want to be clear on their rights. So as an example, in Johannesburg, Pick It Up has the mandate to collect waste by the city of Johannesburg. So the waste reclaimers are not similarly mandated and want clarity on how to navigate the space. So this talks to a practicality on how we are addressing it from a waste perspective and how we are collecting it from that perspective. And one of the outcomes is that there's a need for a model to integrate waste reclaimers and be aligned with municipalities and specifically take the bylaws into account. This is a practical, tangible step that's needed. And it is also obviously a point of concern that so many years down the line, as far as the regulation goes, this is the discussion that we're still having at this point. Ideally, an outcome would be a replicable blueprint or pilot that can be effectively rolled out nationally. That is the explicit aim of this type of engagement. It needs to lead to a next phase in terms of implementation, so practical, tangible. A discussion was also had on the need for a track and trace system to verify and record rates of recycling. All parties present strongly encourage the need for this to create more transparency. This will allow for better verification of data around collection and recycling, with the intent to measure with some degree of certainty the impact of EPR programs. It's clear there's a lot of activity that's taking place, but we need to be able to be clear what is the impact as far as these activities go. And so having this kind of track and trace system will allow for this to happen in a much more tangible way. I think Professor Armstrong specifically highlighted, can you verify and what you can manage, monitoring what you can, managing what you can monitor, sorry. So aside from this, there was an open discussion on what the key issues that are being faced and how we could actually work together as far as a national collection model goes, and what the key features could be for that system. So one of the discussion points was working under single national brand so that the public can recognize it and that there is linked clearly as far as awareness goes. And how do we actually navigate the space? Now, for this, I need to highlight there are several organizations that were in attendance. And one of the things that should be noted is that there was no consensus on the branding issue, on working under a single brand as far as public awareness goes. So this remains as an open topic that needs to be addressed and resolved at a later stage. Out of this engagement, it's clear from a next steps perspective that the forum gathered was too large to create a fine-tuned plan. And clearly, as I mentioned earlier on, we want these types of engagements from a collaborative perspective to be tangible, to be outcomes driven. So therefore, representatives from each of the organizations in attendance agreed that they would meet to be able to work out detailed next steps plans. One of the discussion points was around the establishment of a recyclers forum. Up until now, recyclers have not had the chance to voice or to articulate specific interests and needs. So they recommended a need for a forum or an organization that can engage with government on critical legislative topics, such as the impacts from the Basel Convention and economic viability of establishing local refineries. This was specifically taking into account the needs from an electronic goods sector perspective to be able to understand when goods are classified as hazardous, how they can actually be traded and handled from a waste perspective and what is needed. Already, initial members of the forum could be and would be, from a tier 1 perspective, DESCO and eWaste Africa, and there were several smaller recyclers that also expressed interest of being part of this forum, and these included Bafana and Indlumi Recyclers. Aside from this, we want to make it practical. We want to make it tangible. We want to make it inclusive. So one of the discussion points was around the need for sector-specific training. So with this, waste reclaimers specifically highlighted the desire for training to move up the value chain, to move beyond simple collection to value-adding steps such as dismantling. So this means that there's need for sector-specific training on how to be able to do this. Specific training on e-waste plastic was also requested by the reclaimers, and it was agreed that a national roadshow would be held to create awareness to identify the different plastics and how to handle them. So essentially having the mindset on how do we maximize the value as far as the collection model goes. Also, it was discussed that new training programs are going to be developed, which are aligned with local needs. The discussion around EPR data management systems is quite a critical one, particularly when it comes to electronic goods, this track and trace capability. And this is something that has come up in several forums. I've mentioned it under the national collection model, but it also is a topic that is being unpacked by itself. There is, as a consequence, a commitment to start an AI-driven digital infrastructure that will provide up-to-date data across the entire value chain, from the point of products being placed on market, understanding what is being imported, what is being collected, what is being recycled, etc., as we're moving across the value chain. This track and trace is designed with the intent on making the EPR system work in a much more effective way. It will include a spatial distribution map of products so that it can actually guide the collection model, which means that spend can be done in a much more effective way. It was also discussed as an important tool for government to measure the impact of EPR schemes. So this is really something that's quite critical, and I'm hoping in the panel discussion that we have a little bit later to unpack this as well in terms of what the needs are. And as you're sitting here in the audience, for you to think about questions in terms of what you ideally would like to see if we were to engage in a system like this. And then in terms of the next steps, in terms of partnerships and the need for collaboration, a pathway or momentum has been started for this era of collaboration. So it is clear to all that we don't have a perfect plan, but we need to start somewhere. And it was agreed to have a review process to ensure that we keep this momentum up. The goal is to create order and value through a collaborative approach that is for the betterment of the EPR system in terms of environmental impact. For the collaboration to take place, the true test will come in the form of implementation. So this means there will be a need for consistent follow-up and engagement across the value chain with these partners in particular. So in conclusion, it's clear from the day one engagement that there is still a fair amount of work that needs to be done. It's also clear this is a marathon, not a sprint. We need to continue with these types of engagements for a clear focus on tangible outcomes. As a collective, we look forward to the next in what we are hoping to be a series of these types of engagements, leading to growth and strengthening of this ecosystem in a tangible way. Thank you very much.